everybody, hope you're doing well. I covertly went back into the school and rescued Big Daddy. So he was very unenthusiastic to see me, and he's very grumpy that I brought him home. So I hope everybody is doing okay, and I am happy to tell you that this is the last week of reading night. So if you liked it, we're going to come to a conclusion. If you didn't, you're done. So we'll be doing some different things in the next few weeks, and I'll be informing you about how that's going to go. We're not going to start a new novel, obviously, because we don't have a lot of time. So we're going to be doing some varied short story reading activities over the next couple of weeks, and that is a reminder, we only have a few weeks left of e-learning, so please, 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 if you have missing work that you need to get into me, email me. My late work policy is still the same. I want an email, and I'm hoping to get everything updated on Wednesdays. So please contact me via email if there's anything in Power School that is not lining up with what you have completed, and we'll get that updated for you as soon as possible. Let's dive into Chapter 9 of Night. I remained in Buchenwald until April 11th. I shall not describe my life during that period. It no longer mattered. Since my father's death, nothing mattered to me anymore. I was transferred to the children's block, where there were 600 of us. The front was coming closer. I spent my days in total idleness, with only one desire, to eat. I no longer thought of my mother or my father. From time to time, I would dream, but only about soup, an extra ration of soup. On April 5th, the wheel of history turned. Such interesting figurative language. It was late afternoon. We were standing inside the block, waiting for an SS to come and count us. He was late. Such lateness was unprecedented in the history of Buchenwald. Something must have happened. 2 hours later, the loudspeakers transmitted an order from the camp commandant. All Jews were to gather in the apple plots. This was the end. Hitler was about to keep his promise. So obviously, if he says this is the end, what's the promise Hitler made? Exterminate the Jews. So Ellie's assuming this is not going to end well for him. The children of our block did as ordered. There was no choice. Gustav, the Blockalteste, made it clear with his club. But on our way we met some prisoners who whispered to us, "Go back to your block. The Germans plan to shoot you. Go back and don't move." We returned to the block. On our way there we learned that the underground resistance of the camp had made the decision not to abandon the Jews and to prevent their liquidation. So the only thing that kept Ellie from certain death was because some people decided to tell these kids, hey, you need to turn back around because the fate that awaits you is obviously not good. As it was getting late and the confusion was great, countless Jews had been passing as non-Jews. The Lageralteste had decided that a general roll call would take place the next day. Everybody would have to be present. The roll call took place. The Lager Commandant announced that the Buchenwald camp would be liquidated. 10 blocks of inmates would be evacuated every day. From that moment on, there was no further distribution of bread and soup, and the evacuation began. Every day a few thousand inmates passed the camp's gate and did not return. On April 10th, there was still some 20,000 prisoners in the camp, among them a few hundred children. It was decided to evacuate all of us at once, by evening. Afterward, they would blow up the camp. And if you're not a huge strategy person, why would they do that? A lot of people jump to the conclusion, oh, it's to get rid of the evidence. That, and also, if those army forces from the opposite side are coming in, they could use those structures that exist to house themselves, to stay out of the elements. So if they destroy those structures before they leave, nobody else can use them. So it takes away that potential advantage for their enemies. And so we were herded onto the huge apple plots in ranks of 5, waiting for the gate to open. Suddenly the sirens began to scream, alert. We went back to the blocks. It was too late to evacuate us that evening. The evacuation was postponed to the next day. Hunger was tormenting us. We had not eaten for nearly 6 days, except a few stalks of grass and some potato peels found on the grounds of the kitchens. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the SS took positions throughout the camp and began to herd the last of us toward the apple plots. The resistance movement decided at that point to act. Armed men appeared from everywhere. Bursts of gunshots, grenades exploding. We, the children, remained flat on the floor of the block. The battle did not last long. Around noon, everything was calm again. The SS had fled, and the resistance had taken charge of the camp. At 6 o'clock that afternoon, the first American tank stood at the gates of Buchenwald. So if the American tanks are there, that means they are going to be liberated. Our first act as free men was to throw ourselves onto our provisions. That's all we thought about. Not of revenge or of our parents. only of bread. And this kind of ties back into that topic we've been talking about of lack of loss of humanity, rather. You would think that your first concern would be thinking about your family or thinking about what you've gone through, but they have been so deprived, again, of the things that they need to survive, that they can't even focus on emotions. They can't focus on their goals or what they want. They just want to eat. And even when we were no longer hungry, not one of us thought of revenge. The next day, a few of the young men ran into Weimar to bring back some potatoes and clothes and to sleep with girls, but still no trace of revenge. 3 days after the liberation of Buchenwald, I became very ill, some form of poisoning. I was transferred to a hospital and spent 2 weeks between life and death. One day, when I was able to get up, I decided to look at myself in the mirror on the opposite wall. I had not seen myself since the ghetto. From the depths of the mirror, a corpse was contemplating me. The look in his eyes as he gazed at me has never left me. And let's think about the word choice there. Ellie refers to his reflection as he, the look in his eyes as he gazed at me. It's himself, right? But he's referring to himself in the third person here to kind of create a distance. When he looks at that person in the mirror, he can't really identify it as himself. He identifies it, in fact, as a corpse. He looks more dead than alive. So that use of language there helps us understand what's going inside his head. All right, guys, that is the end of chapter 9. It's a very, very short one. And there is an afterword, which is the Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech that is in that PDF I gave you guys. If you want to read that, great. You are by no means required to. But it's very interesting because when Ellie speaks and he acts as narrator in this novel, his tone is obviously very negative. He's very angry at God. And as you guys probably noticed when you read his Time interview that he gave later on, those feelings really changed over time. And instead of being dominated by anger and by hatred, he became a very peaceful person because he realized anger and hatred is what led to this point. He didn't want to perpetuate those negative emotions and negative energies. So that takes us to the end of night. If you guys have any questions about the reading or any of the assignments for this week, please let me know. Have a great week.